Hey, what's going on everyone? Cameron with Exodus Trail Cameras, and welcome back to another episode of Trail Cam 101. Today, the video topic is running your trail cameras in video mode. Now, if you haven't watched the previous 3 videos, please go back and check those out. In the first video, we covered what a trail camera is and why we think you should have one. In the second video, we talked about the trail cam lingo and what you need to look for when purchasing a camera. And in the third video, we covered everything you need to know about running your cameras in photo mode. Now we're going to do the same thing, but in video mode. So the first thing you need to know when running your cameras in video mode is the video size your camera is capable of running. If you're running one of our Exodus Lift 2s or an Exodus Render, you can run that camera in 1080p HD video at 30 frames per second. Now, if you have a Trek camera, it only runs 720 HD at 30 frames per second, so that's something that you need to be aware of. Now, 1080p is going to be a higher file size, a larger file size than a 720 video. Now, the next thing you need to look at in your user menu is the video length. That's how long you want to run your videos. You can run an Exodus camera, an Exodus Lift 2, or an Exodus Render anywhere from 5 seconds to 90-second long videos. Now, what you're going to want to run is determined by where you're hanging that camera, whether it's in a static or a dynamic environment. So first we'll talk about a static environment. What is a static environment? A static environment is somewhere you're going to want to monitor that you know where the deer is going to spend the majority of its time in frame. You can kind of dictate where that deer is going to be moving. That is something like a bait station or a mineral site. Now, running your camera in video mode in those settings offers a great opportunity to collect a lot of data. You know that deer is going to spend a lot of time there, so you'll be able to determine its body language. You'll get a very good reading of his antlers. You'll see different angles, and you can really determine the direction of travel, where he's coming in and where he's leaving. So in terms of video length, you're not going to want to run those videos any shorter than 10 seconds. You're just not going to collect enough data running it below 10 seconds. Now, after 10 seconds, it's kind of your discretion. It's how long you want your videos to be. In a static environment, I'm going to shorten up those videos a little bit. I might run a 15 to 20, 25 second video just because I don't want a lot of video. I don't want to spend a lot of time checking my card of a bunch of does eating minerals or bait. So in a static environment, I'm typically going to run a shorter video. Now, in a dynamic environment, what is a dynamic environment? A dynamic environment is just the opposite of a static environment. You can't really determine where that deer is going to come into frame, where he's going to spend the majority of his time in frame, and the direction he's going to leave. So this is something like a deer trail or a scrape or a field edge, somewhere that you just really can't determine where that deer is going to be. So video mode shines in these types of environments. When you're talking about video length, in these environments, you're going to want to bump that video length up because you don't know where that deer is going to be and where he's going to spend the majority of his time. So in a dynamic environment like a deer trail, I'm going to run anywhere from a 30-second video all the way up to a 90-second video, depending on the time of year. For example, if it's late October, November, bucks are starting to chase does. If you have a doe using a deer trail religiously, eventually you know a buck is going to be on its tail. If you have your video set too short with a longer trigger delay, you're going to end up missing that buck. So it's worth it to look through the 90-second video to see if that buck was on that doe's trail. Now, for example, if you're running your camera in video mode over a scrape, 30 seconds, 35 seconds seems to be a great length. Typically, the deer is going to spend a little bit of time there, but he's not going to spend all day there. So 30 seconds seems to work perfectly for those types of settings. Now, once you determined what video length that you want to run, you have to think about the trigger delay, the time in between those videos. So in a static environment, we're going to want to lengthen those trigger delays. You know the deer are going to spend a lot of time there, and if your trigger delay is set too short, you're going to get a lot of repetitive videos. So you don't want a bunch of video, unless you do. If you want to if you're just a wildlife fanatic and you want a lot of video of the same deer, shorten up your trigger delay. But for a deer hunting purpose, I'm going to recommend lengthening that trigger delay a little bit, anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute to even 2 minutes if those deer are spending a lot of time in those environments. If you feel like you're not getting enough data, shorten that trigger delay up. If you think you're getting too much data, lengthen that trigger delay up. Now that applies the same to dynamic, but in a dynamic setting, we're going to want to shorten the trigger delay. You're going to miss a lot of key data if your trigger delay is set up to a minute or 2 minutes. Now, again, that depends on the time of year. If you're running your camera on a deer trail or on a scrape in November, you're going to want to shorten those trigger delays up to 10, 15 seconds. Now, if it's non-peak times like summer or late season and you're running them on deer trails or scrapes, you can get away with running your trigger delay a little longer, but that's up to your discretion. I recommend playing with it. If you think you're missing data, shorten the trigger delay. If you think you're getting too much, lengthen your trigger delay. So once you have all that all set up, you have your video size, your video length, and your trigger delay all set up, you're ready to put your camera out in the field on video mode. Let's just touch on some of the pros and some of the negatives to running your cameras in video mode. Now, video mode offers a great opportunity to collect a lot of data. It's basically a series of photos in one. Running your cameras in video mode offers a great opportunity to collect a lot of key data. For example, you get a better reading of that deer's body language, how he communicates, and it offers different angles of his rack. Now, just some of the things to be aware of. You can call them cons, you can call them negatives, but just something to be aware of is that when you run your camera in video mode, the power consumption is greater. You're going to run through your batteries quicker than you would in photo mode. Now, if you're running your cameras in video mode and you know that you're going to run them in video mode, please, please, please run lithium batteries or run some type of external power source. We have the SB18, works across all of our models. If you don't want to run that, just make sure you're running some type of external power and or lithium batteries. Another thing to be aware of when running your cameras in video mode is it's going to take up more card space compared to photo mode. We recommend running a 32 gig, 16, 32, 64 gig card, whatever your camera can handle, because the videos are going to take up more space on that card compared to photo mode. Another thing to be aware of when running your cameras in video mode is it's going to take longer for you to check those cards. If your camera is set to a 90-second video, each trigger event, you're going to have 90 seconds to search through. But you can learn a lot in those 90 seconds compared to scrolling through photos. So those are just some of the things to be aware of. But here at Exodus, we really enjoy running our cameras in video mode. It just offers so much more key data compared to running them in photo mode. So just to recap, when you're running your cameras in video mode, the things that you need to look at in your user menu are video size, video length, and trigger delay. When deciding where you want to run that camera is going to determine how long you want to run that video and how long you want to set your trigger delay. And some of the pros and cons. Pros, you get more information out of a video than you do a picture. Some of the cons, it takes up a little bit more battery life, more card space, and it takes longer to check them. But once you experiment with running your camera in video mode, you'll find that the time that it takes to check those cards and the battery, the power consumption, and the card capacity aren't really negatives compared to the information you are then getting out of your cameras in your camera locations. So that's it, guys. I hope you are now a little bit more educated on running your cameras in video mode. Stay tuned for next week's video. We'll cover hybrid mode inside your camera, which is just running that camera in photo and video mode at the same time. You get a photo and a video. So stay tuned for next week's video. In the meantime, if you have any questions, concerns, comments, drop them below. Hit that subscribe button for us and give us a thumbs up.